Hi guys, I wanted to create a short video to help you get started with Claude Design. This is something that is pretty recent in terms of products. It's been out maybe for a few weeks now, and a lot of people asked me how to use it, some best practices and so forth. So I decided to create a short video to help you get started. Well, first of all, Claude Design can be found here online. When you go to Claude.ai, you'll be able to see design icon here. If you have Claude application installed on your computer, you can't really get access to the design. You need to be in the browser, right? So once you are in the browser, logged in, you can click design and you'll be taken to this page, right? So in this page, you'll be able to see that you can create prototypes, slide decks, and then you can use templates, and you can also create other graphical content, right? We'll focus on, we'll go through all of them, to be honest. So first thing to note is that this is research preview. What does it mean? It means that it can potentially go away. There are bugs, and I have actually encountered a few bugs. Basically, we are testing guinea pigs, but it's still valuable enough so that, you definitely should give it a try. So what can you do? You can create high fidelity, basically, proper websites or landing pages. You can also create wireframes. So if you kind of want to bounce off ideas, you can create wireframes, and you can create presentations, right? I can show you a few, and then you can create templates that you can later reuse, and you can just create, graphical, artifacts like social media, visual elements, and stuff like that. So let me show you some of the stuff that I was able to do. So here is a landing page that was created with one prompt. There we go. This is the one prompt, and it's pretty dope. It has animation. You can actually see it in a new tab. So I think it will do it better justice. You can see animation, hover effects. Here you can see like a proper animation. And this is based on a design system that I previously created. I will talk about it soon as well. So, yeah, pretty cool in my opinion, right? So this is a landing page. Obviously responsive, works, would work in mobile and so forth. And then let's see maybe a presentation. So here I'm just looking, let's do this one. So this is a presentation, right? That was created using Claude Design. Really, really nice, like super nice. But we'll go into details on on each of them a little bit later. But let's get started. And by the way, you can click examples. Here you can see some of the examples that you are able to create with Claude Design. They're pretty cool, and you can click use this prompt and use it as a starting point to try something new. But anyway, one thing that I have to tell you before you get started with Claude Design is that Claude Design has a separate, right? It has a separate quota compared to other products, right? So if you go to your settings, right, and you go to keep usage, yeah, there we go. You will see here that you have Claude Design, right? So it has a separate quota, and it resets weekly, I think, or close to weekly. With Anthropic, you never know because they tend to adjust limits. They tend to scale them, down sometimes. Like there is a lot of black box magic that is happening that they don't really tell us about. But anyway, it has its own quota. And if you have extra usage turned on, once you run out of quota, it can actually start using your extra usage allotment, right? And yeah, again, just so that you know, because when you work with Claude Design, it can actually use the quota very quickly, especially when you create design systems. But again, we'll talk about design systems a little bit later. So yeah, this is how it looks. And when you just see it for the first time, you can choose prototype, slide deck. You can create something from a template, or you can use some other visual artifact. One thing you need to understand is that Claude Design is actually Claude Code with extra steps, or at least that's how I think they've created it. Because if you look at anything that it actually creates, if you look, for example, at, well, let's see where did I have presentation, like here. So if you look at the final result, this is presentation, yes, great, but it's actually HTML. It's actually HTML. So it actually creates, you know, a front-end application that looks like presentation and acts as presentation, but it's not a true presentation. You can, of course, share it and share it with your team, right? But you can also download it as PowerPoint files if you want to edit it in PowerPoint, or you can export it as PDF. But again, we'll talk about that in more detail soon. Let's get started. And the first thing that you do when you start using Claude Design is you want to create a design system. So what is a design system? Design system basically is a set of rules, right? And basically information on how to present your brand, right? When you create design system, you basically feed it as much information as possible about your target audience. You can give it your website URL so it can fetch the data from there. You can describe tone of voice, all of that. Basically, if you think about it, it's kind of like a brand book, right? I think that's the closest analogy. It's a brand book that you create and that is dynamic and you can change it, you know, anytime. I think it's actually genius that they did this because this allows you to reuse it. You can reuse it in Claude Design, but you can also export it and use it in Claude Code and so forth. I think it's pretty good. But let's create our first design system so that you can see how it works and how you can create your own design system. So the first thing to keep in mind, obviously, is that if you have already a brand book or you already have a website or you have some visual guidelines, you should obviously import them here. But let's go one by one. So let's create a design system from scratch, not really having any assets, right? So let's do Gigavolt. Okay, that's one of my companies. So let's create a new design system for this company. So if you have existing code, so if you have existing website, for example, you can give it access to your GitHub repository so it can pick those color values, fonts and stuff like that from the actual code. You can also drop code by just adding it here. So if you have code on your computer, you can actually drop it here so it can pick the values again, right? And you can upload Figma files. So if you have design or you have your brand book in Figma, which is pretty popular, to be honest, I think a lot of companies have a Figma file. So if you have a Figma file, you can upload it here. But again, don't upload the whole Figma file. You can upload and you should upload the whole Figma file, but it will ask you, you know, what is actually relevant when it comes to branding. So pick pages that are actually relevant because some Figma files can be enormous, right? Again, yeah, that's good. And if you have fonts or logos or other assets, you can actually drop them here. I'm going to start with a blank slate as if I didn't have any kind of branding material at hand. So I'm creating absolutely from scratch. So again, in most cases, you will probably have already something. At least you will have a website. You can add your website here. So you can add your website, so you can actually go to the website and pick up the, like color values and visual elements from there. But yeah, we're starting absolutely from scratch. So I'm going to say our company, here you can provide additional information. Our company doesn't have a design system nor a website. We are starting fresh here. Our company provides AI consulting and software development services for companies in Finland and Estonia. We aim for friendly tone and we want to be super approachable but professional, right? So you should provide as much information as you can because it gives it a better context. You should obviously mention who is your target audience. Okay, and once you're done, once you have given it all the information, you click continue to generate. And this creating design systems takes a lot of tokens, right? So it's gonna basically drain your quota very quickly. But once you have design system in place, it should be pretty easy, and it doesn't drain your quota as much when you start creating assets based on this design system, right? Which I think is, good to know, because you don't want to be creating many design systems. If you have like the lowest paid tier account in Claude, you can actually, by creating one design system, burn through all of the quota, right? So yeah, just be mindful of it. So now, sometimes when Claude doesn't really understand what you're trying to do, Claude will ask you additional questions. So here it's asking me like, hey, do you have any brand assets, anything at all? No logo, no nothing. And yeah, I have a logo, I have brand assets, but I wanted to show you how you can start from scratch. So yeah, I'm not going to give it any assets. And how should name be written? So here, camel case. And then which mix of personality traits feels most like Gigavolt? So Nordic warm, like a trusted advisor. Here you can, yeah, you can just pick, let's go with playful and energetic, and then pick visual direction that resonates. So now, because we didn't give it any kind of assets, it's gonna try and kind of, get a sense of what do we like. It creates basically like a taste profile, right? So I think this is nice, and this is nice, and then typography. All right, let's do modern, primary language. Let's do English, and then which surfaces should I mock up as UI kits? So now it will ask you like, hey, I will create a UI kit, right? Do you know what you will be creating next, so I can create UI kit for it? And let's do pitch deck and marketing website. As you can see here, it can create UI kit for proposal, email newsletter, and stuff like that. But obviously it will take more tokens. So you don't have to do everything at once. You can just do a pitch deck maybe in the beginning, or a marketing website. But I'm going to choose both here. What services should be most prominent? So here, you can decide a little bit what kind of services you provide and so forth. And again, more information you give it, the better usually the outcome. So I could say AI automation is our main service, right? And then any brands you admire visually, anything to avoid, right? So here it tries to understand what kind of taste do you have, right? So I'm gonna say Apple, Notion, Obsidian. What else? What else do I like? I don't know. I don't really know. Let's go with those. And then which sample headlines feel most you? And here again, yeah, let's go with helping Nordic companies turn AI from hype into a product, like this. And now it's going to create design system, right? And once the design system is created, as you can see here, design system is nothing else but bunch of files in a folder basically. So it's not going to create a PDF file with your brand book, nothing like that. It will basically just create a collection of files that actually define your brand. It will create SKILL.md and all that good stuff. We will go through them soon. So once it started working, you can actually leave and do something else if you want to. You can always come back here and you can see the progress, right? You can see it created style sheet already. It created also folder for assets, right? Created a logo, pretty cool. And we will work on this soon. But now let me tell you a little bit about sharing functionality. So first of all, when you click share, you can share by default. Your teammates can, once you give them the link, your teammates in your organization can comment, but they cannot edit. So if you want to give them opportunity to edit a design system or a design project inside Claude Design, you can do that easily. Or you can make it private. Obviously, if you if you're not part of organization, by default, pretty much, all your projects are private unless you share this, link with somebody. But yeah, you can share it with your teammates. That's pretty cool. And you can also duplicate the project. So I had a client yesterday that had two brands but they were very similar. They had different logos and stuff, but typography, look and feel, it was pretty much the same. So it doesn't make sense to create two design systems from scratch. We designed one design system, or we created one, and then we could just click duplicate and then go into that newly created design system and just make few changes, change the logo and stuff like that. This way you are actually spending a lot less tokens, right? Or you can duplicate it as a template and use it as a template later. This is very unlikely that you will do this with a design system, but yeah, anyway. And you can download it as a zip file. Basically, it just packages everything you see here as a zip file. That's it. Why do you need it? Why would you ever download a zip file? Well, most likely if you're using something like Claude Code, or if you're using Codex, or you want to use it programmatically in some way, yeah, you would probably download it. You can also export it as PDF, as PowerPoint, or you can send it to Canva. Or you can export it as a standalone HTML, or you can hand it off directly to Claude Code, so you could, for example, create a landing page or something like that, right? So basically, yeah, pretty useful, I think. There is quite a lot you can do with it. So yeah, while we wait, you can see here it says it will take about 5 minutes. I think it will take a little bit more, but we'll see. I have a design system already created, so we could go and see, what the final product looks like. So let's click here, for example. So here we have a design system for my personal website, and as you can see here, we had quite a long discussion. So let's talk a little bit how you interact with Claude Design. So when you go into any project, you will see here on the left, you will see chat, right? And you will be able to chat with it just as you always do. Keep in mind, if you press enter, it will actually not, it will not submit your prompt to Claude Design. You have to hold command, or I think control in Windows, and then press enter, right? Or you can just click send. What I like about Claude Design is that you can actually queue multiple prompts. So you can, write a prompt and then, click send, and then you can write another prompt and click send. And those prompts will be executed, one after another. So it's super useful. You don't have to wait for it, because you can give it all the prompts and then just, go drink some coffee. What else you can do? You can use speech, right, to interact using voice. I don't think it's very useful. I think it's actually pretty buggy. You can import anytime. Later on, you can import code. You can grab a web element. You can give it access to folder. You can import, skills or design systems, reference another project, all that good stuff. A little bit more advanced, I think. We will focus on maybe some of the basic functionalities. But yeah, you can do quite a lot. You can also click this and attach files. You can also drag and drop files, right? And you can also choose here which model you want to use, right? I think you would probably be using the latest Opus model most of the time, but if you want to kind of stretch your quota, maybe you could try using Sonnet, right? That's one way to maybe try and manage the quota. But again, I think Opus is just where it's at, to be honest. Okay, so once I gave it all the information, once, I gave it feedback about the results it created and so forth, it will display draft design system, right? And it will show you what elements need review, right, from your side. So here you can see it created an element, avatar, right? So this is a UI element or component, and it shows you here preview how this component looks like, and you can give it feedback. Looks good or needs work. If you click looks good, it will directly go to the next one, right? And here it shows you, icons, right, that it will use in this design system. Again, you can say looks good, right? And here, icons for social media and stuff, looks good. And then here, venture logos, yeah, looks good. And this, I think, looks good as well. Colors, yes. Yes, I'm trying to find one that doesn't really look good, so I can click the needs work button, but everything here actually looks super good. Yeah. 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 This is menu, pricing. Yeah. Yeah. I think it's okay. Looks good. So basically it will show you many different elements that then will be used as a Lego building bricks to create whatever visuals you want to create, be it, you know, landing page or pitch deck or something similar. This looks good. This looks good. This is spacing, so basically spacing between different elements. Here we see body, and then here we see headlines. Yeah, this all looks pretty good. It actually took it from my website. And here's website constructed using elements from the design system. Looks good as well. You can see each element later on here by just clicking on it, right? Like this, right? And you can make changes anytime, right? Anytime. So you can click needs work and you can type what you didn't like. And then you click submit. This will actually send a prompt to the chat, right? And by the way, if you have teammates who have access to this project, you can see their comments here. You can also leave comments to yourself if you're working alone on a private project. Right? Pretty useful. And it creates kind of like a to-do list of you know, things you need to do. And you can just click here, checkbox, and then send to Claude, right? So you can actually use this as a kind of like to-do list for the project, and you can always click here on the checkbox and send it to Claude. So it's kind of like maybe like a backlog of prompts that you want to run later, or ideas you have in form of a prompt. And if you have a team, they can actually reply. But this project is only for me, so yeah. But anyway, there is, you know, a way for you to have conversations, but I think the biggest benefit here is probably just being able to store prompts and then just send them directly from here to Claude. Okay, let's go back. It actually made the addition, and now it looks good. Now we are happy, right? I think we are happy. I think we are happy. So here it is. Now, as you can see here, it says needs review. So now it wants us to review this change and to tell Claude if it's good or not. Now we can say, no, needs work. Now, hover state is good, but default state is not as readable. Maybe make default text lighter, right? So again, you can tell it what to do and it will do the work for you. So once, now it actually was very quick. I didn't expect it to be this quick. Yeah, I think it's good. Now it's good. Yeah, it's good. Looks good. I'm happy. So now that I'm happy with everything, right? As you can see here, there's quite a lot of components. But for example, if I wanted to have components for presentations, I could say create UI kit for presentation, right? And now it will ask me additional questions. So who is the target audience for this DEX? Investors and partners, and then internal, well, investors and partners. And then what is the aspect ratio you want to use, right? And then, you know, how close it needs to be to the website. Let's do identical. But you can decide also like, hey, I want it to be based on the website DNA, but I want it to be bolder. Again, you can always write, you know, custom prompt here. But yeah, I think it's a lot easier when you actually see multiple choice question. I think it's kind of easier. So yeah, let's do site DNA but bolder. Include light variant. Let's do, I don't know. Let's do just dark, stay on brand. And then which slide layouts should the kit cover? So what type of slides you want to have? I want to have title, divider, big stat, bullet list, logo wall, pricing, process, and then, I don't know, image led photo slide. Again, you can type a lot more here. And then what should the demo deck be about? Let's do, I don't know, let's do imagined conference talk. And then how many variants per slide. And remember, you can create as many variants as you want, but it will all burn your token quota, right? So let's go with one. We can always create more later if we want to. And then how do you want imagery to be handled, right? I like to use real images. I can actually create them with ChatGPT images 2.0, but for now, just like, let's have placeholders and I will just replace them with real images. Do I want to use icons? Yeah, let's do that. Larger, let's do, yeah. Same ones we use on the website. And then headline scale. Here you can say decide for me if you're unsure. You can always change all of it later with prompts. Deliverable format, a working slide deck. I want that to be the format, right? Or maybe let's do kit and then the real deck. And then do I want to add tweaks? So tweaks is a really nice functionality that Claude Design has. So you can create a project in Claude Design and then you can ask it like, hey, I want to be able to make quick changes without going into prompts, and that's what quicks are for. I will show you what quicks actually, what they do very, very soon. But yeah, give me toggles for accent. Yes, and then anything else, you can provide additional information here. You could say, for example, like, hey, we create presentation slides in English and Finnish, or we utilize videos a lot. So like, just tell it a little bit more about the use cases. You can also click here to attach images. If you, for example, like some presentation, like pitch decks, you can find really good ones online. You can just drop those here, images as like a reference, or you can just write text. Then continue, and off we go. Now you provided answers to all the questions that Claude Design had, and now it will do the work. It will create the kit, right? Basically, those Lego bricks we talked about that you can use to create presentations in the future. And then if you want to create landing pages, you can say, hey, create UI kit elements for a landing page, and you will go through the same process. Then you could say, hey, create UI kit elements for social media posts, right? And it will, go through the same process. But now let's go into design files, and let's talk a little bit about design files. So when you click here at the top, design files, you will see that it actually has assets, and assets are logos and images. And because I gave it my website, it actually downloaded all of that, like all of those assets from my website. Here, fonts, right? I use on my website Interfont, so it downloaded that as well. And then previews, those are just previews for the elements, UI kit elements. And then here, scraps, that's a sketch that I made. I will talk about sketches soon. And then the actual UI kit, right? And here you can see it's creating UI kit for presentations, and we already have one for the website. And then here, this is style sheet, right? If you open it, it's probably now modifying it, that's why. Okay. And sometimes it has issues, it has bugs, it is what it is, right? And then here you can see README. It has all the information about the design system. It also explains what each design system file actually do and so forth. So this is super useful. And skill, this is a very important file. So by default, you don't really do anything with it, right? At all. It's not really useful for you, a human. For you, probably README file is very useful, right? It allows you to understand better the content of the design system folder. But skill here is something that Claude Code can use to understand the design system and then to know how to apply it to projects in Claude Code. This is super useful, and we can cover it at some point when we will talk in different video about Claude Code. So I think that's pretty nifty, right? And here at the top, you will see there is paste. You are able to paste elements. directly into this folder if you want to, right? Yeah, I pasted something actually now. What did I paste? Oh yeah, I pasted some text here, and it, as you can see here, it created a folder uploads, and then here is the text that I pasted. It was pasted into this file. You can also download each file separately by clicking download, or you can also delete files. I don't recommend deleting files, especially files that that were created by Claude Design. But if you uploaded, a file, like maybe you wanted to add a video, right, like a short video, or you wanted to add stock images that you downloaded that you want to be used in Claude design system, that's absolutely fine. That's actually a good idea, because if you uploaded a few images, right, like maybe those are your product images or whatever, they can be uploaded here, so Claude Design will know to apply them in future projects. But if you click here, new sketch, you can actually sketch something, right? So you could maybe sketch like a landing page, right? Right? And then if you, it's kind of like Figma Jam, if you're familiar with Figma Jam. Nothing really special, you can draw, you can, write text, you can create shapes, have arrows, you can move, right? Canvas, basically it's kind of like a canvas that you can zoom in, zoom out by holding Control and then just using your mouse wheel. Nothing really special, to be honest, but you can save it. If you click save, right here, now it's saved, and now as you can see here, it actually appeared in two places. You can now close it once it's been saved. You can close it. It will appear here, right, as a sketch file or like a napkin file. I think it's a standard they created themselves. But basically, that sketch will be saved, and you can see here it's actually referenced in the chat. So what you can do and what kind of workflow you can actually utilize, you can create a sketch, right, and draw maybe elements of the landing page, right? Or you can maybe create some sort of like rough idea of how, a social media banner looks like or something similar. Then you can click save. It will appear here in the chat, right? It will be referenced here in the chat, and then you can say create social media page based on my sketch, right? And yeah, it's a great way, especially if you're a very visual person. You can actually create sketches and then use them in chat to kind of give a direction for Claude Design. I think it's super cool. And again, all the sketches will always be here in the scraps folder. You can of course delete them, but they don't really take any space and don't really impact in any way your token usage. So now we have UI kit for presentation, and now it needs a review. And now you have to go right and see if it's something that you actually like, right? And then, as we did before, looks good. And then you will go, slide by slide. Oh yeah, that looks good, and so forth. The process is always the same. When you create new UI kit elements, they always need to be reviewed. If you make changes, they need to be reviewed again, and so forth. The end result is that you have basically you have a design system, right? And now you can decide if you want to publish it. Publish means not publish to the whole internet. Publish means that it's ready and you can use it in your Claude Design projects. And you can choose if you want it to be default, right? Because there can only be one default design system, right? So now when you have your design system created and you're ready to go, default design system will be here. It will be, selected by default for all new projects. But all other published design systems will be here, right? So you can select them. So you can work on multiple design systems. You can have one design system for each of your clients or each of your brands and stuff like that. But let's take a look at the Gigavolt design system, right? So now it created design system. It actually created a logo, right? And I'm just gonna whiz through it very quickly, just approve everything, right? And it says like, hey, we're missing some fonts, right? And yeah, I'm not going to upload some fonts, but remember, if you have some custom fonts that you are using, and if you have appropriate license, then you can upload them here, and it will be part of your design system, and it will be used, you know, across all the projects that use your design system. So now I gave it some feedback, and yeah, it's finishing the design system. And once it's done, I will be able to use this in Claude Design to create projects. But now let's create actually something fun. So let's start with something super small. Let's imagine we want to create a social media like visual element, something super simple. So let's go with, and this is the name of the project, let's go with Claude Design tutorial video. So here I will choose DV design system, for example, and that's it. Now I have few options. Design system is loaded, you can see here, right? Design system is loaded and it will be used. You can start with a sketch, right? If you are good at sketching, I'm not very good. Or you can, give it another design system. You can, for example, just click X here and then choose design system, like so, right? When you create a project, you can click design system and then you can choose here different skills that you potentially want to use. Again, a little bit more advanced. Let's keep it simple. Just choose a design system, and you can add screenshots. You can add, code base and stuff like that. You can also add Figma file if you want to. But I'm just going to use design system and say I want to create a social media post for LinkedIn for a Claude Design to tutorial video, right? That's enough. We can click send and we are off to the races. It will ask you some questions again. So what do you want to create? I would say let's do landscape, right? And then what is the tutorial video about specifically? How to use Claude Design and how to get started with it, right? And then how long is the video? Let's do 1 hour. And then here, what is the primary goal of this post? Drive views, okay? And then what is the tone the visual should copy? Educational, how to. Should I write LinkedIn caption text too? No, just the visual. Any specific headlines? No. Should the avatar, your face, be in the visual? Let's do yes, but let's do secondary. And how many design variations would you like? Let's go with something fun. Let's go with 5, or no, let's go with 6. It's one of my favorite numbers. And then what should variants explore? Let's do decide for me. Let's just let Claude do the work. And then do you have a screenshot or a thumbnail for the video? No, put placeholder. I will give it later the screenshot. And then what is the call to action? Watch the video. Or something else cool. Maybe get started with Claude Design, right? So that's pretty cool. Now we gave it all the information it needed and we are off to the races. While it's working, you can, for example, sketch something if you wanted to, right? You can also give it additional comments. So you could say, let's give it some time to work. So this is the thing that I told you about. It doesn't really create an image. It will create front-end code, right? That's the whole point. It creates front-end code. It will create image by creating basically a website that we can later export as PNG, JPEG, PDF, or as an HTML file if we wanted to. So now let's just let it be, but we could say take into account best practices of posting on LinkedIn or something, right? So you can give it additional prompts and click send, and they will be queued up, so they will be executed once your previous prompt is done, your other prompts in the queue will be executed one by one. And you can also click stop if you want to stop execution. So if you see that it's doing completely something random, right, or there is an error or it's stuck in a loop, you can always click stop. But yeah, that's pretty much it. While it's working on this, let's go and create another project. So here, let's create a slide deck, and let's use Danielian's design system, and let's do, I don't know, event deck for a talk about static website. Well, let's do just, I don't know, let's give it a name. Name doesn't have a lot to do with the context, so it's pretty much for you. So speaker notes means that slides will not have as much text, but Claude will create speaker notes for you, right? So you can click create, and now you can see here in the chat context we have make a deck, speaker notes, and then design system. So basically that's kind of like the starting point. And what you can do is you can actually drop files here. So you could, for example, drop a monthly report, right, in like an Excel or in Word document or in PDF, and say, create out of it a presentation that highlights, for example, I don't know, ROI of our marketing campaigns or something similar. So what I'm trying to say is that you don't have to create your presentation by telling it what it needs to put in each slide. You can actually give it all the information, and Claude will actually synthesize it into something that can be displayed as a deck. So now I'm just going to say, create a deck, 10 slides for my talk about static websites in 2026, Astro plus Claude Code plus agents plus Cloudflare. And you see it tried to open LinkedIn post from another project in this project, which resulted in file not found. So it's basically a bug, don't worry about it. And then Cloudflare pages, create placeholders, as I will add content later, right? And you click send. And now it will start creating the presentation, right? And presentation, as you probably guessed, will also be a front-end application that's basically disguised as a presentation. So now it will ask me again questions. I'm now going to go very quickly because we have gone through this process before. I'm going to do 30 minutes, developers, engineer, let's do founders, and then decide for me, 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 and then continue. So that took us, what, like 2 seconds? I don't know, okay, maybe 10 seconds. So now it will go to work, and let's go back to our LinkedIn post. And here you can, by the way, see all of your projects, right? All of your projects, you can search here. It couldn't find my project. Oh, okay, it had, yeah, I named it a different way, okay. So you can see ones that are kind of like reddish, those are design systems, and the gray ones are just regular projects. And you can see here your design systems. You can change which design system is default here. You can also unpublish design systems. You can create them, and you can also click here to open design systems so that you can make potentially changes or preview elements. So now let's go to Claude Design tutorial video. So now what it did, it created, right, the visual asset. And now here when you see laptop, it's actually verifying its work. So what it's doing, it's trying to look at the final result and see if it's actually any good. And yeah, remember we gave it this additional prompt, take into account best practices of posting on LinkedIn. Now it's finished on the first prompt, it created the visual. Now it's doing research and trying to find what are the best practices of posting on LinkedIn, and tries to incorporate those, and it will create a new version of it. But we can click open, and here it is, right? Here is the element, and we have multiple options here that we could choose from, right? This one is nice. It has a place for the screenshot. Yeah, pretty nice, right? This one actually has animation, right? That's pretty cool. And remember I told you about this tweaks functionality. So tweaks, if I click on it, it allows me to describe what I want to tweak in this particular element that is now visible. I can also comment, like, I can provide a comment and it goes into comments, or I can write a comment and send it to Claude, and Claude will know what element I'm actually referring to. So for example here, let's go here. Oops, you see it again opened a random file in a wrong project. So let's go here, for example, click comment, and then we can do this. We can select this element and say remove animation, right? And then send it to Claude, right? So Claude now will know what element are we actually talking about. Okay, that's super cool. Let's continue. And here, when changes have been made, if you are in the preview here, you will see reload for new version. So when it made a change, you might not see the change if you are in the preview. You have to click reload, right, to see the latest version. So now if we go here, it actually removed animation. There is no animation here anymore. So that's pretty nice. And now you see it actually named each of the versions and also numbered them. So let's say we like number 5. You could say export number 5 as PNG, and you can click send, and now it will export it as PNG, okay, which is pretty nice. But remember, if you open the final result, and in most cases final result is an HTML file, you click on it and then you click open, right, and then you can choose share and then PDF. If you do that, if you click on PDF, it will actually open a new tab with that visual element maximized in that tab, and it will open a print dialog. So there is, like, it doesn't give you like a real PDF. What it does, it opens a browser and uses browser's print functionality from where you can choose to create PDF. So it's kind of, as I mentioned before, it's actually creating code behind the scenes. It doesn't create, visuals in a traditional sense by generating images. I think this approach is actually a lot more interesting. It's a lot more flexible, and it allows you to utilize UI kits and UI kit elements. It's a lot more consistent in my opinion. Okay, so you can also draw on it and provide feedback by drawing on different elements. Yeah, as you can see here, there is also a way to give feedback via voice, but again, I think it's just too much. Okay, now if we go back, we should see our PNG file soon, somewhere here. And because we asked it to create PDF, it's now creating a print file for each of the variations, so that will take a little bit of time. Again, you don't have to wait for it. You can just go to the previous project, and yeah, you can, let's do this one. This is presentation that we were working on. Here's the presentation itself. And you can see here, it actually created notes for me, speaker notes, even though, I probably want to write those myself, but it's trying to be helpful. You see, it used all the elements, right? I think it's super cool. Oh, we see here, maybe this is, too close together, those characters, but still. So now, I don't know what the heck is, this is map placeholder, okay. So yeah, it created the presentation, and if we are not happy about it, we can go back and just ask it to make changes. We can click, on tweaks, we can click on edit. Yeah, we can talk about edit, by the way. So when you have a page here, for example, it allows you to edit some things directly, right? So here, it allows you to change the background, but because this utilizes our UI kit with the background specified, again, you see it opened a file that doesn't exist. Yeah, it will basically allow us to change background, but since it uses UI kit element, we can't. And then here you can change fonts and base size and stuff like that. But I don't think I used edit much, to be honest. I think I just prefer talking to Claude here. So now it's still working on it, but we can see already a preview. And if we wanted to export it as, for example, PDF, we just open it, share, export as PDF, and that will open, as I mentioned before, a new tab, and it will open the print dialog right away, and you'll be able to save it as PDF. It doesn't really generate PDF, your browser generates PDF. Okay, and yeah, if we go back here, what did we have? Claude event deck, this is where we were just a little while ago, and it's still creating for us the print files that we can later open and then export as PDF, so that will take a little bit of time, but the PNG file is created and it's here, right? As you can see, it's not very good at creating directly, like image files. So now it made a mistake, and we would have to tell Claude Design to fix it. We could say like, hey, the PNG file you created, if you ask it to export something as a PNG, JPEG, whatever, it will go into exports folder, right? So you can find it here. But if you're not happy with it, if it actually, made a mistake, you can just tell it and it will redo it again. And then let's look quickly at prototypes and templates, and we're done for today. So prototypes are basically websites, right? They are not, websites in the sense that it's a WordPress website. No, it's just a website element using your UI kit based on your design system. It's really good at creating landing pages, and it's really good at creating, like mini websites, but I don't think you can use Claude Design to create like a complete website. But what you can do is you can create design system, give it to Claude Code, and then Claude Code could create basically, a proper website for you, right? Based on something like Astro and stuff like that. So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. So let's create first a wireframe. I can show you how it works. And then let's create like a proper landing page. Again, now we will go a little bit faster because we will be using the same elements and the same workflows, we have seen already. So landing page for, event, and then design system, and then let's use wireframes. So now we've chosen wireframes, and we'll say create mockup wireframes for my event in Tallinn. Let's do Helsinki now. Helsinki 2026. Use placeholder content. I will add real content later, right? And you can just give it this little information, and it will have enough context to start asking you questions. And the more information you give, the more it will actually know and ask you less. So if I had a proper, maybe like a pamphlet or maybe proper event description, I could give it all the information in chat and it wouldn't even ask me anything. Let's do, just very quickly, let's answer its questions. How many wireframe directions you want to explore? Let's do just, 3. I don't know, let's do this, and then let's go. So again, if you're actually creating wireframes, you would spend some time answering those questions in a way that actually makes sense. But we just want to go through it quickly. And yeah, it will start doing the work, right? So it will use components from the design system and so forth, right? And it will create now a wireframe, and it will create multiple options of those wireframes. So creating wireframes also takes most likely less tokens, so it's a little bit cheaper. So if you want to bounce off some ideas, it's maybe easier to create wireframes and not spend all your quota, right? As you can see here, it started to create style sheets and all that good stuff. And yeah, let's create another one, just like a landing page for event. And then here we choose high fidelity. High fidelity means it will look like a real website. It will have potential animation if you ask it to do it and so forth. So yeah, it's pretty intensive when it comes to just token usage. Click create, and now you give it information here, but what you actually can do, right? You can actually reference another project. So what is the workflow you can actually use? You can create wireframes here, right? And then kind of, test different ideas, and then you can settle on one, wireframe that you really like the proper structure. And then when you are happy with it, you can go into a new project, high-fidelity project. You can create an empty high-fidelity project, and then you can import, right? You can import that, that wireframe here and say like, hey, in this other project, I was bouncing off ideas and I settled on a specific wireframe. Now I want you to use that wireframe and create a high-fidelity page out of it, right? So I think that's, yeah, I think that, you know, is super cool. And yeah, and as you can see here, you just need to copy paste the link, right? So basically what you do is you go to the wireframe project, click copy link here, and then go to the new project, new project, paste the link like this, and say based on wireframes in this project, create a landing page for my event, right? That's pretty much it. So it's super, super useful. And yeah, it kind of follows proper design process, because usually in the beginning, you, like when you design anything, you gather references, you kind of try to understand the project, you gather context. And then after that, you go through wireframe stage. So you kind of try to understand information architecture. And then when you're happy with that, then is when you move to high fidelity, right? So now let's just go very quickly, create landing page for my event and use placeholder, and don't ask me any questions. Create something I can use as a starting point, right? So now we can just, and you see again, it tried to open wireframe files in this new project. So this is obviously a bug. So now it's going to do the work, but we'll go back to the previous wireframes project, and we should now be able to see wireframes. Here are the wireframes, and you see the laptop is visible again. It means Claude Design is checking itself. And yeah, if you open it, you will see that there is a canvas. You can hold Control and just navigate the canvas. There are three options. Typographic hero, right? And here you can see mobile, how it will look like. If you click maximize, you can see it here as a preview. And then there is one split hero, text and image. And then here we have poster hero, right? So again, you know, basically a big image. This I think has some issues, but okay. Oh, it's still, yeah, it verified itself and it found issues, and now it's fixing it. I think this is the exact issue it found. Okay, you see here, it's fixing itself. So yeah, now basically that's pretty much it. This is how you create wireframes, and then you just keep iterating by opening wireframe and then, you know, commenting, you know, making modifications and so forth. It's, you know, should be pretty familiar. Now let's go, this is still wireframes. Now let's go into high fidelity. So yeah, it's creating now high fidelity page, but again, as I showed you before, it looks like this, for example, like this. And this is a event landing page that I created based on a few prompts. And here in Twix, you can see here, I can modify content of the landing page here directly. I don't have to talk to Claude about it. So here, for example, if I go to audience size, where was it? I can modify audience size, I can modify pricing, right? And it will be reflected right away on the landing page, right? Yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Yeah, this should give you enough information on how to get started with Claude Design. Again, if we go back here, right, it's still working. We have so many processes working at the same time. The last thing I want to show is templates. Once you're happy with something, right, you can save it as a template. So if you created like a template for social media pages, like for example, let's say you post videos and you wanted to create a thumbnail that you will be using in, you know, like in, on LinkedIn or on YouTube, and you want your thumbnails to always look the same, then you can just click share, duplicate as template, and then when you create a new project, you can choose here from template, give it a name, and choose a template here and a design system. And then that's it. That will create a new project based on previous template. Basically, it will copy the project, basically, and you can just make few changes here and there. You can change the text, for example, change an image, and then export it as a new like PNG file you can use in social media. But that's it. Hopefully this is useful, and yeah, have a wonderful day, and yeah, go burn those tokens. Thank you. Have a wonderful day. Bye.